I'm Sue Stockdale, and welcome to the Access to Inspiration podcast, the show where you can gain free energy by listening to the stories of inspiring people who may be unlike you. I'm your host, Sue Stockdale. Today I'm talking to Janine Canham, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Sanford Bernstein in Asia. And the essence I got from our conversation was how she is bringing a sense of humanity to the workplace by fostering a sense of connectedness and team spirit. As an ultra-distance runner, Janine has competed in multi-day races all over the world, raising money for the charity Run Hong Kong. And you may remember I spoke to Virginia in episode 16, who's the co-founder of Run Hong Kong. So listen in and you will hear Janine talk about how the mindset of never giving up has parallels in both business and long-distance running. Welcome to the podcast, Janine. It's great to speak to you today.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks for having me.
Now, I know we're going to be speaking about work-life balance, managing the pressures and the stresses that we all face today. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in our conversation. And perhaps I should let the listener know that you're kind of managing that firsthand right now because you're in day 6 of quarantine. Is that right?
That's right. Day 6 of 21 days of hotel quarantine, which is the rule in Hong Kong. So in isolation in a hotel for 21 days, which is quite tough.
Have you got a plan as to how you're trying to approach these days? Because that can be quite a long time, I can imagine.
I do. So I've saved up all sorts of jobs to do while I'm in quarantine, because I think the main strategy is to keep yourself as busy as possible so the days fly by. I've got a training program which involves 2 to 3 sets of exercise a day. So I'm got a spin bike, I have a treadmill, I've got weights and resistance bands, and I'm tripping over all my gym equipment in the room. And I'm also making sure that I have several Zooms in the evening with friends and family so that I don't feel completely isolated and lonely. So that's what's keeping me going. And finally, I wouldn't say it's a strategy that's necessarily working, but I'm trying to relax and just accept my fate because it is what it is. Harder some days than others, but I'm trying to just think there's nothing I can do about it. So just give into it and relax. But I have to say at the moment, because they test you every 3 days, every time the phone rings, I literally leap out of my skin. So it's easier said than done.
I think it's employing a good degree of patience as well, by the sounds of it, in terms of just accepting that there's not a lot you can do to change it, but how do you survive it as best you can?
That's right, yes.
When you're not in a hotel room in quarantine, I know that you're Asia Pacific CEO of Sanford Bernstein. That's a financial services firm, isn't it?
That's right. It's a broker-dealer investment research firm, which is part of Alliance Bernstein, which is an asset manager.
Now, that's one part of your life. You're also an ultra distance runner and you have twin boys. So it sounds like you're a pretty busy woman.
That's right. So my twins are now 17. So they've actually been at boarding school for the last 3.5 years in the UK at their request. They absolutely love being in the UK. But during COVID times, this has been quite challenging, obviously, to spend time together as a family. So that whilst it's great for them because they're getting on with their lives and education and so on, it's been pretty tough and adds an extra challenge with the COVID restrictions here in Hong Kong.
And I know that it was through one of our previous guests on the podcast, Virginia from Run Hong Kong, who was in episode 17, that she recommended you as a guest. How do you know her?
I know Virginie through 2 facets of life. One, she's an ultra runner and a much more accomplished ultra runner than I am. She's actually, I think next week or the week after, about to embark on her third 4 Trails Ultra, which I think she must have talked about in the episode you refer to. She's doing this for the 3rd time now. So I've met her through ultra running. I also know her because she runs a charity for refugees in Hong Kong, which is very close to my heart. She helps refugees through the power of sport to integrate into society by taking them out hiking with people, running, and so on. So given my background, which is my dad's Lebanese, and we lived in Beirut till I was 12, and we left because of the civil war. Now, I do look at refugees and think, there, but for the grace of God. We were obviously very lucky. My dad had a great job and we were able to relocate. But obviously, there are a lot of people less fortunate. So I have a particular soft spot for the refugees here. And that's also how I know Virginie.
So it's great that you can have that strong connection with her through the different aspects of your life and your interests. If I was thinking about your job as COO, first of all, Janine, how do you manage to juggle that demanding job, I imagine, with all the other parts of your life that you want to be paying attention to as well? Explain for the listener pressures of any given day. What does a day look like for you in your job?
Well, I get to the office at 7 a.m. Now, obviously, with COVID and some days working from home, I'm talking about what was normal before now. But I have a carpool with some people who work with me and we live nearby. We get to the office at 7 a.m. And the beauty of it is I juggle by trying to leave the office whenever possible around 4 p.m., get back home so that I can have a couple of hours doing my own training during the daylight. And being in my position, obviously, with a global firm, there are a lot of Zooms at night. So I resume work in the evening. So that's the way I juggle it, is by giving myself some flexibility during the day. And at weekends, I tend to get up very early, 4:35 a.m., to do running or cycling because it's pretty hot and humid in Hong Kong usually. And so the best time of day to exercise is early. So manage to juggle things just by getting up extremely early, trying to fit it all in. It doesn't always work, but that's what I try and do.
And you're talking there about global demands on you from other parts of the world. How do you still prioritize your sport or family life for that matter when the job is so demanding?
With kids at boarding school, it's easy when they're at school, obviously. When they're home, then I do have to prioritize them over things at times. So it's really just a question of, I think, making sure people understand when you have conflicts. People in my office are extremely understanding. Now, if I have a really important family matter and I have a competing meeting, I think it's just about having a conversation with people. And the same with my team. I think COVID especially has made people appreciate families more, appreciate your colleagues' families more as well. Everyone knows that we're all in this together, we're all struggling. So there was one day in the office when I actually burst into tears in front of everyone on the trading floor because my kids had just gone back to boarding school the day before. And for a split second, I was actually really embarrassed that I'd cried in front of everyone. And then I thought, you know what? They're all struggling with something. So instead of running to the bathroom, which I normally would have done, and try and hide it, I just said, guys, we're all going through something. You're going through something. You're going through something else. And we actually ended up all having a conversation about it. And I think it's being human and showing people that you are human too. And I think you don't need to hide your vulnerabilities. And I think that does help with juggling because previously to COVID, you try and not show your vulnerable side in front of people in work and you'd accept late night Zooms and so on. And there have been many times when I've done things like miss kids' sports days because I had to travel for business trips or this, that, and the other. I think now people don't feel so embarrassed about putting their families first.
So, if I was to ask one of your colleagues, even one of those colleagues on your trading floor, to describe you as a leader, what do you think they might say?
Oh my gosh. I hope they would say, above all, I'm empathetic because I do like to put myself in a lot of people's shoes. And we are a very friendly, open firm. And I think that's the one thing probably that makes me never want to leave where I am is the people. We're all pretty open with each other. And I think that's really important. I think they would probably say I'm very approachable.
And I get that sense from how you describe yourself as a leader, of thinking about the people in your firm and connecting and having empathy for others.
Yeah, I hope that's how people see us. I like to think we're all in things together. We wouldn't be able to achieve nearly so much on our own, obviously. And I just think if we all help each other, we'll achieve so much more and such a much better time doing it as well. I've been in this company for 11 years. Previously, I was a partner in a law firm. And I have to say, there was a lot of dog eat dog in a law firm. There was a lot of competitiveness and backstabbing. It may not be like this now, but back then. And I used to go to work with sort of a knot in my stomach and thinking, why can't people just see that we're all in the same team together? Why do people have to be constantly backstabbing each other for credit for things? And yeah, that's a big difference, I think, from where I was before to where I am now is the team spirit.
It's great to hear that there's that human aspect that's really coming across from what I'm hearing you talk about, Janine. is valuing people in this whole experience, no more so important than now that we're working virtually.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've just been away to see my kids who are boarding school. I report to the global COO who had absolutely, no issues with me being away as long as I need to. We've got a lot of people who are currently traveling or stuck outside because they went back to see their families in different places for Christmas. We've got a lot of mainland Chinese staff who we told go home for Christmas and stay till after Chinese New Year. We've given people 8 weeks to come back, more if they need it. But I think if you don't do that, you're just going to lose people and you're going to have very unhappy, miserable people because, Hong Kong in particular is making it quite tough for people to travel with our 21-day quarantine rules. And so we're trying to be really understanding and help people. And I hope people appreciate that. That's more important than a lot of other stuff at the moment, is just making sure that people's well-being is prioritized.
I'm thinking as you're saying that, Janine, that many a boss perhaps listening to this might also think, well, yeah, that's fine, but we still have to make the numbers. We still have to get the results.
Even with working from home last year, we found a lot of our staff have been more productive. So, for example, we have a bunch of research analysts and associates who research companies. In a normal year pre-COVID, they'd be traveling a lot to see clients. Let's say they do a US trip. They might be traveling within the US every single day and having 8 meetings a day. Well, now they don't do that. They Zoom clients. They've got a lot more time to actually write the research. And so we're actually finding, in an ironic way, having this work from home in some ways has benefited a great deal. So it just cuts out a lot of that unnecessary travel time that people thought was much more important before and less so now.
I guess I want to turn my attention to your love of sport and ultra running, if I may, Janine. I also know that your partner is an ultra runner. Is that right?
That's right, yes. We met through running about maybe 7 years ago.
Does that make it easier then to participate because it's kind of a family affair?
Yes and no. He's a much better runner than I am. So we don't tend to run together because he's on another level. But I guess he understands my love of running. I guess we're probably a bit boring as far as other people are concerned. We probably talk about running a lot more than other families do, perhaps.
Now, what are some of the ultra runs that you've done that really stick in your mind? For the listener that doesn't even know what an ultra run is, just give us a sense of what it involves and how far it is.
Well, so let me tell you how I got into this. I was quite a late start, actually. It was after I had my twins and I was trying to initially lose weight. And I had a personal trainer to help me. He started me running. And at first I was just running, a few kilometers here and there. And eventually I said to him, do you think I could possibly run 10 kilometers? And he was like, don't be ridiculous. Of course you can. So I ran 10K. Then eventually I was like, can I run a half marathon? Can I run a marathon? And ultra marathon is obviously anything that's longer than a marathon, which is 42.2K. It was kind of continuously pushing myself to see what I could do next. That got me then into, okay, I'm suddenly got fixated on the idea of doing a multi-stage ultra, which was my first really big event, which was the Racing the Planet's Gobi Desert Race. And that's 250 kilometers over the space of a week. So 6 marathons in 7 days. And I'm just, an ordinary person who didn't even take up running till after she'd had kids. And obviously, as you say, got a full-time job. So can't dedicate as much time as some other people can to training. And it just shows really that anyone can do these things if you're interested enough. So I even recall turning up at the start line and all these people stood there and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've bitten off way more than I can chew. They all look professional. They all know what they're doing. And the reality is there's a big bunch of people just like me who weekend warriors. We just do it for fun. We love the atmosphere. We love the excitement, the adventure, the people that you meet on these, and then seeing all the spectacular scenery that you wouldn't otherwise see when you just go on a normal holiday or even just on a normal run. Once it becomes quite a long distance, by definition, you're probably going to be running places you can't get to by car. And that's the bit that I love so much, is just looking around and seeing all these, amazing places you otherwise wouldn't see. So then I got hooked. And of course, once you're hooked, it's there's no way back because you're constantly planning the next one.
Fitness and health and be injury free. As a previous athlete myself, I know that it's always really important to be injury free. How do you look after your body to make sure you're in shape to do these long runs?
So obviously it's tougher as you get older. And what I do now is I do a lot of strength conditioning. I go, well, gyms are closed now because of COVID, but I've been going to train with a physiotherapist stroke gymnasium called Joint Dynamics here in Hong Kong. And I train with them twice a week and we do strength conditioning work there, and definitely need that as you get older.
There's also something about the mental game in running. What are you thinking about in such a long distance? You've told us about the scenery that you're looking at, but what's going on in your mind? Because certainly, if your mind doesn't believe you can do it, your body won't keep up.
It really depends. Sometimes I am really just not thinking about anything, or I'm just chatting to people. I guess when it gets really, really tough and you're struggling, that's when the mental game kicks in. And when you have to play mind games with yourself to stop yourself from quitting. And I guess then it's down to your purpose or thinking. Usually for me, I dig into places I've been where I felt worse, and I do that day and think, okay, I got through it that other time, I can get through it this time. And it's also at the end of the day, for most of those multi-stages that I've done, I've always made a point of raising money for one or other charity that I feel quite strongly. The last few races, obviously, it's been for Run Hong Kong, which is Vision's charity. And then it's really hard to give up because, it's more than just about you. And I think that is a very big incentive as well.
I can't imagine running those really long distances that you're describing, Janine. How fast are you actually moving? What's it like?
It depends on the event because I've done about a dozen of these multi-stage races. Really does depend on the terrain. I mean, some of them have been in sandy deserts like the Sahara. Some of them are in mountains. Some of them are in jungles like in Costa Rica. And one multi-stage was in Antarctica. So in those, obviously depends on the day, how much elevation there is, how technical the terrain is. You may not be going very fast. And it's also a question of pacing yourself. So if you start off too fast on day one, you realize you're just not going to make it to day 7. So you do have to hold back in the first few days. And obviously, I'm not one of these people that's professional athlete who's at the front of the pack. And part of the reason I do these races as well is to get to see the scenery and so on. So sometimes it's kind of missing the point if you are pushing yourself too hard because you don't get to appreciate everything and everyone around you either. Yeah, so there isn't really an easy answer to that question.
Well, I think what you're describing to me is you're seeing it as a complete race, and then each day is divided up into a small proportion of the larger race. So you have to be balancing your efforts over the whole duration rather than just thinking about running as fast as you can on any given day.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, this is where there's an interesting difference between men and women because it's a bit of a generalization. But on the whole, my observation has been that women are much better at pacing themselves than men. The men tend to go out really hard from day one, and then you find some of them are quite broken by day 3 or 4 and really slowing down. And it is the tortoise and the hare in some cases.
So it must give you a bit more motivation at the end of the race when you might be overtaking some of those men that have burnt themselves out in the first few days.
Yeah, some of them don't like being chicked. That's true.
Well, I guess we all have to find our motivation in different ways. In terms of running in a race, I remember when I used to race, I never wanted to be overtaken by somebody wearing flowery shorts. In my mind, that was an indication that they weren't a proper runner.
Well, I remember the first time I did London Marathon, I actually had bronchitis and I ended up having to walk the second half. I was so sick. And I was being overtaken by people dressed as beer bottles and caterpillars and Big Ben and all sorts of things. And it was incredibly frustrating because I could only walk to the finish. And sometimes you've just got to let it go as well.
So I'm wondering, is there a crossover or a connection between the mindset and the skills and the capabilities that you bring to running and how you lead in your job?
I think one thing I've noticed is through work in my projects, one thing I really notice myself doing is thinking that there has to be a solution. I don't like to accept a work that isn't a way around. It takes me a long time to get to the point where I think, okay, there really isn't a solution. We really can't do this thing that it is we might want to do. And I think maybe same thing with when you're running an ultramarathon. It's thinking, okay, I have to look at the whole, and thinking somehow I'm going to get to the end. I don't know how, but I know I'm going to. And I think with the job and the event, you have to have the finish line in mind and think, I'm not quite sure yet how I'm going to get there, but I know somehow I'm going to find a way to get there.
So innate belief that it will work out in the end.
Yeah, and just like making sure you pull everything out of the bag to make it happen.
It's been really fascinating to speak to you today, Janine. Just thinking about the changed world that we've all been experiencing over the last couple of years. Is it different leading a team now when you know that many of them are working virtually? And what then does that bring to your leadership?
I think the main thing with people working remotely is just to make sure we all stay connected with each other. So we're not completely working remotely in Hong Kong. We have a core team that's been coming into the office most of the time, even when we've been working from home mostly. We've had sort of a small critical team on the trading desk coming in. I think the main thing is to make people feel that we're still all a firm. There's some people who may join and not see anyone in the company for months on end. We've tried to make sure that doesn't happen. I think the worst thing is to feel isolated. And I also don't like Zooms where people don't turn on the video camera, to be honest. I think it's really important to see each other. And I've noticed this, especially with myself being in quarantine. A couple of days ago, I had a meeting with my team and they called from a meeting room that didn't have Zoom. And I just said, guys, next time, can I see you all? Because they were all sitting together and I'm sitting on my own. And I think you just notice how much you need to see people. It really is important. And one of the things we've been doing a lot at work is that obviously this has been happening globally, but also just in Hong Kong, there's a small group of us making sure that we're really offering as many resources to people as possible so that they still feel part of a team. So one of the things we did when COVID first broke in Hong Kong and a lot of people were working from home is we did a run challenge with proceeds going to Run Hong Kong. And we got people to put themselves in teams and run on their own, but their mileage would accumulate with everyone else in their team. And then they'd sort of all try and run a marathon between them each week as a team. So maybe you would run 5K, your teammate would run 10, etc. And we did that for 7 weeks. So what happened was people would then be constantly on messaging each other and saying, I'm really busy today. I'm not feeling well today. Can somebody run my 2K for me? And in return, I'll buy you a beer next time we can see each other, or this kind of thing. And it just created this whole camaraderie. And I think that's what we've been trying to maintain, is find a way to make sure everyone still feels like a team, even if we can't actually physically be together.
That's a brilliant way to get connection together and enable people to be fit as well and to do a little bit of exercise every day, keep them active.
We have people joining in from our Mumbai office, for example, and they were telling me it's not that easy to go running in a big city in India, in the heat and pollution. But they were telling me that they were using it as an excuse to leave their desk and just walk outside the building when they had conference calls, just to count the mileage in terms of meters walking outside their compound and this sort of thing. And it was just really getting people to move and chat. So it really worked well.
Well, that sounds brilliant. Finally, Janine, once you get out of your quarantine on day 21, what's the first thing that you're looking forward to doing?
I'm looking forward to seeing my dogs. I have missed my dogs. I'm just looking forward to cuddling my dogs. I know it sounds a bit lame, but that's the one thing I'm looking forward to the most. And my partner Mo is probably going to kill me that he's not top of the list. And then after that, just fresh air, just take the dogs for a hike, just things we take for granted, which is, being outdoors.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, Janine, getting a sense of the humanity that you bring as a leader, that you care for people that you're describing, and your enjoyment and love of being in the outdoors and moving. If people want to connect with you on the internet, how can they do that?
People can find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to meet some new like-minded people. So yes, please do get in touch.
I'll put the link on the show notes so people can find it easily there to connect with you if they wish, Janine. It's, again, a great pleasure to speak to you today, and thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Sue.
I hope you enjoyed what Janine had to say. And there are lots of other episodes on our website from people involved in the endurance running world. Just hop on over to accesstoinspiration.org and you'll find them all there. Next time, I'm speaking to Jeffrey Morse, who is one of the most upbeat and positive people I've spoken to. And Jeffrey will share his astounding recovery journey after his life took an unexpected turn. I can hope you can join me then.